cross up to Queensland now and catch up with One Nation leader Pauline Hanson. I think it's in Yeppoon. Pauline, how are you going? Well, did you hear any of that interview?
I am. Hi.
Did you hear any of that interview?
Chris?
Are you concerned about these workers in the gig economy, as they express it, particularly, say, Uber Eats and Deliveroo type food delivery workers? Are you worried that they might be being exploited, without bagging those companies, I stress? But
I think it needs to be looked into. I don't know it fully across the board. I don't understand it, but I think it needs to be, looked at. Yeah, by all means. So I can talk to Tony further about it.
Yeah, it'd be worth talking to him about it, wouldn't it? Because on the basic rules, you would agree that apart from getting a fair wage, they need to be covered with workers' compensation in particular, and probably superannuation.
Yes. Look after the workers in Australia, make sure they are covered by that, because if they have an accident, they're not covered. I don't know what they're going to do about it. So by all means, yes.
OK, now what takes you to Yeppoon? What are you up to there today?
Well, I'm supporting Australians' microbreweries. Now, they're the fastest growing industry in manufacturing in Australia, in Australia. And actually, one opens every week on the eastern coast of Australia. So I'm here supporting. This is Monkey Pig that I'm at in Yeppoon. And so supporting local industries, local business, local manufacturing. I'm sick of seeing multinationals buy up our beer here in Australia and profits leave the country, so support your local microbreweries.
Supporting local microbreweries. It's actually a success story, isn't it? It wasn't so long ago when a lot of our breweries were sold off to overseas interests and the like. We thought that was the end of Australian-made beer, but now there's a brewery on every street corner.
Fastest growing manufacturing industry in Australia. Like I said, one a week is opening in Australia. So I'm here supporting them, and anyway, we'll see what happens further down the track with me.
I want to ask you, Pauline Hanson, about what you think needs to be done to support the country's dairy industry. You know full well that they complain, not only are they being hit by drought and other cost imposts, electricity price increases, for instance, but they certainly believe they're being screwed over by the major supermarkets. What do you believe needs to happen?
The government made the big mistake of deregulating the dairy industry in the 1996-97, around about that period of time. I opposed it. Now, the farmers were led down the path to the slaughterhouse because they thought that they were going to get a better deal with deregulation. That's not the case. At the time, we used to produce about 12 billion litres of milk. Now we're down to 9 billion litres of milk, yet our population has increased from 19 million up to 25 million. In Queensland, we had 1,500 dairy farmers. Now we're down to 385. We've got the dairy farmers now sending the cattle to the slaughter. They're not getting a decent price for the milk. In Queensland, it's a lot less than what it is in New South Wales and Victoria, where they get a better price for the milk. And it disgusts me to think that Coles and Woolies, and they said, look, we'll put 10 cents a litre on for the milk and we'll give it to the dairy farmers. Well, I've just found out that the dairy farmers get 1.4 cents of that. They haven't been passing monies on to it, and Australians are right behind the farming sector. They are right behind the dairy farmers. So I actually put up last September on the floor of Parliament a proposal that we actually support the dairy and farming industry and with re-regulation, and I had some proposals there. There was only 6 people on the floor of Parliament. It was opposed by the Nationals, by the Liberal, by the Labor. They opposed it, and it was the Greens as well. So it was basically the crossbench that supported this. It breaks my heart to see this happening, because I believe that they want to open it up to bring in the milk from New Zealand into Australia and destroy our industry here completely. And Chris, another thing, when we have a Chinese-owned company in Tasmania, about 18,000 or 19,000 head of cattle, and it was important that they have it because it does create jobs, and I see that. But they export 2 plane loads of milk every week to China, and they get $9 a litre for that milk. Go figure.
I want to come back to the issue in a moment, but as you know, our own Alan Jones, both on Sky News and on the Macquarie Radio, has been taking up this cause. I just want to play for our audience, in case they missed it, some of Alan's interview with a dairy farmer who's having to get out of the industry.
Then in July, they put the price up another 10 cents. No one knew anything about it. And and they decided they need to start making money out of milk. Like, you dirty, rotten, mongrel bastards. You know, we need that 10 cents. My cows wouldn't be made into mince now or whatever. You know, I don't get it, Alan. I don't get what is Coles' agenda.
Yeah, generations as a dairy farmer, sending his dairy cows off to the abattoirs. They believe who he's calling bastards there are the supermarkets. What can be done to make the supermarkets pay a fair price for the milk that they sell by the bucket load?
Chris, forget about the supermarkets, OK? It doesn't start there. Go back to re-regulation again, that farm gate price. They know that the processors must pay them so much for their milk. There is a set price for the milk. Dairy farmers are actually, production is costing them more than what they are actually getting for their milk. I know the Australian public will pay for it. When we pay more for a bottled water than what we do for milk,
it's bizarre.
Just have a look at that. That's ridiculous where we've got to. It is.
So does regulation mean a legislated floor price?
Yes, it does. And we have to get back to regulate the industry again so that we know that they get that amount of money and to run their business. So it's got to be at least 10 cents per litre above production costs for the farmers. If we don't keep the farmers here in this sector, you're going to see communities that will die, will shut down, they will walk away from their properties. And what's happening is we've got international interests buying up our agricultural land in Australia. And there's over 25% of our agricultural land in the Northern Territory and in Tasmania is owned foreign ownership. 25% of it is foreign owned.
The bizarre thing here,
this is where the government's headed.
The bizarre economics of this is that apart from fresh milk products and perhaps dairy products that we can export under free trade agreements these days, there's incredible demand, insatiable demand for powdered milk going off to China and elsewhere. So surely there is the potential for the dairy industry to be very profitable right now, given those demands.
It is, and I spoke to the Mullaney Dairy Company in Queensland about the feasibility of setting up a powder milk company. He said, Pauline, it would cost about $100 million to set it up. He said it would be more profitable to set it up down south because the production of milk there is far greater because of the grasses that they have down there. Why no one is backing this, why the government is not backing it, we would have a great industry there if we did it. But there's no guarantee in the industry because we are not giving the farmers a fair price for their milk. And I blame the government for this. They are not backing them. And when they deregulated the industry, which I was very heavily involved in that time, and I opposed it, I knew a dairy farmer personally in Western Australia who committed suicide. How many others out there? So I blame the government for this, and I call on the Morrison government and the Labor Party, get your bloody act together and start looking after the farmers here, because we lose them. Our land, our agricultural land, producing milk and the beef and whatever in this country is ending up in foreign ownership. And another thing too is these farmers are held to ransom with electricity costs, and they're paying about $20,000 a quarter just in electricity for irrigation. So and they're walking away from it. Chris, it's a big problem out there.
We will keep in touch and see how you go with the government getting some action on this.
Yeah.
Just before I let you go, I'm told you met with the CFMEU yesterday. What was that all about?
I did. They reached out to me and I said, I'll have a meeting with you. Now, I believe, and I support unions. I'm not anti-union. I support a fair day's pay for a fair day's work, and I support the safety issues, what they are going on about. I do not support thuggery and bullying in the industry. Now, when they talk to me about the integrity bill...
the kings of thuggery and bullying?
Oh, don't worry. I've had it out with them, Chris, and they admit it. They're no angels, not on more than one occasion. But if you're going to get my support, I believe in what's been fair. If the government is going to allow multinationals to get away with murder in this country and want to rein in the unions, you know, fair across the board, you know, fair go, mate.
So
and
what are you
look
going
after
to
the workers in
cooperate?
Australia.
Sorry to hurry you along. Just one last question. What are you going to cooperate with the CFMEU on?
They've raised the issues with me in the integrity bill. I said I will go through with a fair mind, an open mind to actually have a look at it. If they're putting across fair ideas to me that multinationals are treated totally different to the unions in this country, I will look at it, because we're not going to allow, and I will not allow, multinationals of those to get away with murder in this country, and we're reining in the unions. Unions should not be there to tell the government or hold the people or businesses to ransom. Without businesses, you will not have workers. Without workers, you won't have business being able to operate. Let's clear the decks and make sure that we can work together. As I said, fair day's pay for a fair day's work, and make sure that safety is there. And I will talk to anyone. You prove to me you've got a case to answer. I'm not going along with the government and union bashing here. Let's just work together.
Thanks for joining us, Pauline. I hope you appreciate an Aussie pale ale over lunch.
Oh, I am, and I will. Thanks, Chris. Cheers.
Pauline.